little bit about your celiac disease, when you were diagnosed, how you found out. Did you have any comorbid conditions?
So I was diagnosed about 5.5 years ago, and the reason I even thought to go to a gastro was because I was having horrible acid reflux for almost a year. I mean, it was so excruciatingly painful to the point where I literally wasn't able to sleep at night some nights. It was just terrible. So I thought, this can't be normal. I've always had I always had stomach issues. Like everyone, all my college roommates were always just like, Allie's in the bathroom, you know. I just thought, okay, I have a sensitive stomach, or maybe I had maybe a sensitivity to dairy or something. I don't know. So basically, when I finally went to the gastro, I did an endoscopy, and they told me, literally just from looking at the endoscopy, very surface level, they were like, why don't you try not eating gluten? There's a potential you might have like sensitivity or some kind of allergy. And I was like, no, this can't be right. I mean, because at the time, I just loved carbs. I ate so much gluten. That was like the main focus of my diet.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went to get a second opinion from an expert, and he gave me a blood test. He did another endoscopy, and he was like, you're full-blown celiac. It was like, there's like a scale of a 10, and I was like an 8 or something. I obviously cried. Like, I was very upset to hear this. This is it's a huge change. Luckily, celiac disease is curable, through your diet. So of all the diseases to have, it's definitely, the one you want, because it's so easily curable.
Right.
But this was definitely hard news, and I felt so overwhelmed. I just ate so much gluten-free pasta. I ate rice. I mean, I just didn't know how to eat as a gluten-free person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that was huge. That was scary, and it took me years to figure it out.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not 1-2, especially when you get a diagnosis of this nature, regardless of whether it's quote unquote curable, or not. I mean, it's a lifestyle change.
Right.
So I guess, okay, so just going back a little bit for those people that don't know exactly what celiac disease is, what is it, generally speaking? It's a food allergy, but it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, so it's very complicated. It's actually an immune reaction.
Okay.
So to eating gluten, and there's a protein found in wheat, and that you just it's like a, horrible reaction in your immune system when you eat that. And over time, what happens is the immune reaction to eating gluten creates an inflammation that damages your small intestine lining.
Okay.
Which can lead down the line to really bad medical complications and like a malabsorption of nutrients. And you can get osteoporosis, early onset, and a number of other diseases early in life if it's not treated.
Right. So when you were diagnosed, I mean, you were obviously in your 20s, but, it was early on, so you never... you caught it early, so you never had, more complications, the potential for osteoporosis later in life, and
Right. I hope. I mean, listen, I had 25 years of eating gluten.
Right.
So, but at the same time, I don't think that this was something that I had early in my life. I think it was something that developed, or I don't know. My parents can't wrap their head. It's funny because I was always, they thought I had ADHD for my whole life, which is the craziest thing because the symptoms of celiac can come in so many different forms. That one of the symptoms for me was hyperactivity disorder. And I wasn't able to focus in school. So I was on Adderall and Ritalin, and they threw drugs at me. funny because in our day, I mean, in my day when I was young, you know, they put you in the therapist the psychiatrist who was like, you know, celiac disease wasn't even something they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It was not something, oh, you're not focusing? Well, let's check for celiac disease. That wasn't a thing.
Right.
When we were young. When we were young, it was like, oh, she's not focused, put her on Adderall.
Right.
Oh, she's not focused, give her Ritalin. And so I was misdiagnosed with ADHD for almost my entire life until I graduated college.
Oh, wow.
And then I stopped taking it myself. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel good on it.
Right.
You know, and I was teaching at the time. I was a preschool teacher for many years, and I was like, this isn't helping me. I want to see how I do. And this was my own volition. And then I stopped taking it, and I just felt like a normal human being.
Right.
I was still eating gluten at that time.
Okay, so now with your journey, so you were diagnosed with celiac disease. What was your journey like in terms of, you know, getting on the proper diet, educating yourself? Did you consult with any nutritionists? What was your process like in recovery, quote unquote?
So this was incredibly hard. I would say the first couple months, I was like in this weird state of denial about my diet. And I wouldn't eat gluten, but I would eat as gluttonous as it came in terms of what I ate. So just like as much gluten-free pasta, and I ate a lot of it because I was like, well, it's gluten-free. And I was at the time, I was working out a lot still. I've always been very into fitness, but so I felt that I needed the carbs and in order to, you know, have the amount of energy that I needed to sustain like my fitness life. So this was really hard for a couple months, and I actually ended up gaining weight, about 10, 15 pounds, just by this new gluten-free diet that I was overcompensating, eating all these carbs, and not really understanding like the dynamics of the food that I was eating, just that I was eating enough, you know, gluten-free, so I was good, right? So then eventually I was like, all right, this isn't working. I don't feel good in my body. Yeah, I feel like I'm not, my acid reflux went away, but I was heavy and I felt bloated, and so then I started researching, and I actually I started trying to figure out, asking my nutritionist friends, which I'm lucky that I have a few, about what I could eat and what I couldn't eat, and started researching about this, and I realized I needed to start eating more protein, more vegetables, more grains, more superfoods that would help my body function at its like optimal level in order for me to continue my fitness life. So that's what I did, and I started the integrative health program at nutrition school, and I actually started my health coaching certification, and it just so happened that I learned so much more about my disease from that certification program, and that's kind of just how it came to life there. But no, I didn't see a specific nutritionist. I kind of figured it out on my own.
And that's good too. And obviously you went on and got your, you got your certified, health nutrition, coaching degree and so forth. And I think self-education sometimes is the best tool, as hard as it may be, in order to, figure out what's right and what's wrong. Obviously in today's world, a lot of people see nutritionists, once they're diagnosed with something that's, a food allergy or, like a celiac disease and so forth. But I admire you for figuring it out on your own. It's not always easy.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, there's a list of foods that you can and cannot eat, but just to give our audience, what are some examples of what you can and cannot eat?
So, it's easier to say what you can't eat.
Okay.
So you can't eat wheat.
Okay.
So that includes like farro, wheat berries, spelt. You can't eat rye or barley. Yeast is something you can't eat. You actually you can't eat soy of any kind. You can't eat regular pastas, cereals, crackers, cakes, pies. Actually, most gravies and most sauces are made with flour. And there's so many things that you actually didn't realize have gluten inside of them. The things you can eat, you can really eat anything else. Like, there's no vegetable that I can't eat. There's no protein. There's, I could eat quinoa. There's rice. There's a ton of things that you can't eat. But that's just to give a general idea.
Right. Okay. And so, so obviously there's so much that contains gluten. You obviously gave us a little bit of a list. And, you've obviously learned a lot about what you can and cannot eat. But, when you go to a restaurant or, going to, somebody's house for the first time, making dinner, and, obviously you have a gluten allergy, how do you approach that topic with with the person that's maybe cooking or so forth? And then, like, when you go to a restaurant, like, how easy is it for you to navigate, this allergy and settings where you can't control what you're cooking?
So this is so important, and this is something I discuss with my clients, when we figure out what their, sensitivity is to food, because being vocal and speaking up about what your allergy is, or even what your sensitivity to, or even something that doesn't make you feel good in food, even if you don't have an allergy or a disease or a sensitivity, just being vocal with a restaurant or the host of a dinner party you're going to, or anyone, is so important. And people are so shy about this and will just not do it and end up just eating and not feeling good. And it's just not a good habit to get into. So I'm very vocal about it. I was super strict, and I still am sometimes, especially when I'm pregnant, but being super strict and vocal, and making all my friends know, what I can and can't eat, and are very respectful. And obviously, when we're out, I make sure that the restaurant knows, and I'll call ahead even to tell the restaurant, and a lot of restaurants are great, they'll ask in advance.
Right.
So that's something that has become a lot easier over the years.
Right. And, fortunately, I think it's typical in today's world. You go to a restaurant, they say whether something has gluten, on the menu or not, or is gluten-free, or, if you're going to somebody's house, they, the right thing, quote unquote, is to ask, oh, do you have a food allergy or so forth? But it's clearly not always, easy to navigate, and clearly there's probably been times where you're like, I don't know what to do, especially if it's somebody you don't know, or, I don't know, a restaurant when you're, away in Europe with your husband on vacation, or so forth. So actually getting to pregnancy, you have David, which is your 1-year-old, but especially now you're pregnant with your second. How does not eating gluten, how does that affect pregnancy? Are there certain, precautions you have to take? Or does it just doesn't affect any of the babies growing?
Yeah, that's a good question, and something that I asked, my gynecologist, my dietitian, friends, and just anyone I could kind of pick their brain about when I first got pregnant with David. Because I was like, oh my God, should I be eating gluten so that my child growing in my belly doesn't have celiac disease? Is it going to affect them? And what is the deal with that? And literally all of them were like, do not eat gluten if you are allergic to gluten, if you have celiac disease. There's no reason for me to not feel good because it could or could not affect my child. And the truth of the matter is, celiac disease is a genetic disorder.
Right.
So if they do have it, they have it. And if they don't have it, they don't have it. So me eating something, that has gluten isn't going to affect, the baby. It just will make me not feel good.
Right. Have you researched more about the genetics behind celiac disease? What are the carriers?
That's such a good question. No, I haven't, and actually, that could be something really interesting for me to do next.
Yeah.
Because it would be good to know, is it specifically on a certain chromosome, or how do you get it? And I have always kind of assumed that it's a genetic disorder.
Uh-huh.
Not that any of my ancestors, I don't know that any of my ancestors have had it. I know my cousin has it.
Right.
But I don't know, because this is such a new disease.
Right.
People didn't really know about it. They just thought, or my grandparents or my great-grandparents, if they had stomach issues, they just thought, I have a sensitive stomach. They didn't even consider that there would be an actual disease associated.
You do a lot of cooking. This is very evident on your website and your Healthy Alibi Instagram feed. How do you navigate, your eating needs versus what Jason, which is your husband, and David's needs are, or does it not really matter? They just kind of all integrate, into what your needs are.
Yeah, I think it depends on the dish that I'm making that day, and how much effort I want to put into the dish. So, for example, if I'm making chicken cutlets,
Mm-hmm.
I'll usually make for David and Jason separate ones that have, that are gluten, the breadcrumbs. But for myself, I'll make gluten-free. So if it's something that specific, and when it's all about the breadcrumbs in the dish, if it's going to make or break something for them, or for my husband, my son obviously doesn't care yet. But
Right.
I will make two separate dishes. But it is something we're navigating as a family.
Mm-hmm.
I do cook a lot, and I don't find it a terrible inconvenience to make two separate things. And I don't want to force them to. I don't think it's actually good for them. I've actually heard this from a bunch of nutritionists and a doctor. It isn't a good thing if you are not gluten free, if you're not celiac, to eat gluten free. It could actually hurt your stomach. So I try to make for them just regular gluten food. But for the most part, we eat pretty healthy. So if it's a lot of times it's not even an issue. I'll make fish and veggies.
Mm-hmm.
If I make pasta on the side, I'll make myself gluten-free pasta and then regular pasta.
Right. And that makes sense. And I think with any type of celiac disease or allergies, or, just being a vegetarian, for example, usually the family works together, but with gluten, it can be a little bit more complicated. So it's important to know from your take, which is wonderful, how you and your family navigate that. You make a lot of different dishes. Can you tell us a little bit about, or give us some of your favorite dishes that are gluten-free that you make?
Totally. I actually just came up with a gluten-free chicken marsala dish that is become a staple in my house, because I literally haven't had marsala for I don't even know how long, many years, because of the flour that restaurants make it with. Most marsala sauces make it with. So on my website, I have a new chicken marsala, which is super exciting. I also love an eggplant parmesan. That's been a pregnancy must-have for me.
Of course.
So I've been doing just gluten-free breadcrumbs. I have kinds that I like. I list them on my blog. And so those have been my favorites. And I just love, it's funny because you think, okay, I need to make everything different with gluten-free recipes, but that's really not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the recipes on my website are just regular recipes that just so happen to be gluten-free.
Right. So you originally were pursuing a degree, or not a degree, but a career as a preschool teacher, and was a preschool teacher prior to being diagnosed. And then you decided post having celiac disease that you wanted to kind of change careers. You wanted to focus more on your body and, your health, and just, maintaining, a good overall, like, balance, homeostasis, like, type of feel, however you want to say that. So how has being a health and fitness coach shaped the person you are today? And, in the process, like, what have you learned about your celiac disease in these lifestyle changes?
I would say being a health coach has shaped me, just helped me mature in so many different ways, helped me help my relationship with food that I had, and also just helping other people to, better their relationship with food, their relationship with their body, and how they view, meal times and eating in general. It's so fulfilling. And I would say that celiac disease in general, being diagnosed, and just the journey that I've been on, has allowed me to just have a different perspective than everyone else, not take for granted, just being able to eat whatever I want. I think having certain restrictions has opened my eyes to a world of different, like your community, just people who are different and how we adjust. And honestly, I thought when I was first diagnosed, it was a weakness, and now I actually realize it was my greatest strength.
So what 3 pieces of advice, based on your specialty as a health, wellness, nutrition coach, would you give somebody who has celiac disease or a food allergy of some sort?
Well, if they know they have it, what advice would I give? I guess to try to see the positives that come out of it, and try to get creative a little in the kitchen, and try to make the best out of it. And it's not always easy, and not every day is a good day. Not every day is successful, but in the end, I do think when you have a food allergy or celiac disease, is for a reason. I think God gives us challenges to help us grow and help change us and lead us in a certain direction in life. So to try to see the positives, that's what I would say.
Right. And I would say the same thing. I think your advice is spot on. And I think a lot of people that I interview think the same thing, which is great. Because as we all know, you can be different, but you can be able in so many which ways, even if it's, an immune disorder. So since you've been diagnosed, and, I know that clearly you're not in the research profession, but just from your knowledge being a health coach and what you've seen, also with your own, day-to-day, eating maintenance and taking care of yourself, do you think that there's a sufficient amount of like awareness and knowledge on celiac disease and food allergies, and like what would you like to see improve or advance, in the future?
I have definitely in the past decade, in the past, I would say, I think it's been 6 years since I was diagnosed actually, I have seen such a widespread of information about celiac disease and food allergies in general. It's impressive, but I think we still have a long way to go. I think there are still children being diagnosed with, being misdiagnosed with things that are actually celiac disease, and I think it is really hard to diagnose because it can be such a small thing. It can be a small, and there's different levels of severity. So I think it's really hard to diagnose for that reason, and it comes, again, the symptoms come in all forms. I know someone, not personally, but I know of someone who was put in a mental institution because they had celiac disease, and they were told by every doctor, there's nothing wrong with you. And she said, I know that there's something wrong. And she ended up in the psychiatric ward.
Wow.
And so it's very, very serious. And I think when testing becomes something that that is done as ADD, as easily as ADD, then we could really start making some serious progress.
Yeah. Generally speaking, what resources are there out there? You know, foundations, organizations, so if somebody has celiac disease and doesn't know like where to turn to for advice or support, are there any resources that you would recommend?
There's some websites, the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive Diseases, there's the Celiac Disease Foundation, there's Facebook groups, there's Beyond Celiac, there's a lot of different online resources. There's the Gluten-Free Living magazine. So I think that there are, resources. There's Facebook groups, and I think with these groups and with these kinds of just meeting other people who are going through similar things is a great way to support each other, support yourself, and just know that you're not alone.
Right. And yeah, I think, feeling like, part of a community and that there's other people out there, with your type of, or with their type of disorder, it can be mental health. Mental health's a big one right now. I think that's really, really important.